My husband says that before the honeymoon, he will go on vacation with his family, while I will stay at home as a housewife. But I tell him that's okay since we won't be married for long. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The last few days of my life have been like something out of a soap opera. I never imagined being treated like an object by my own husband, who, I should mention, married me just a couple of days ago. Let me give you some context so you understand how I ended up in this mess. If I'm honest, I've always been a people pleaser. I grew up as the oldest daughter in a traditional home, and from a very young age, I was taught to put the needs of others before my own. My parents were loving but strict, and their expectations of me were high. I was the first in my family to go to university, the first to get a well-paying job, and now the first to marry. My parents were proud, and I felt the weight of those expectations more than ever. Almost 2 years ago, I met James, a 29-year-old man. He was charming, kind, and everything I thought I wanted in a partner. He was introduced to me by a mutual friend at an informal gathering, and from that moment on, we were inseparable. His family was an important part of his life, something I initially admired. I grew up in a small, close-knit family, so I understood the importance of family ties. However, it quickly became clear that James' family operated differently. They were authoritarian, involved in every decision he made, and constantly meddling in his affairs. At first, I attributed it to their closeness, something worthy of envy rather than criticism. But as our relationship became more serious, I began to notice how James often put the needs of his family ahead of ours. There were countless weekends where we had plans, only to have them canceled because his parents or siblings needed something. It wasn't just helping out occasionally. James treated every request from his family as a top priority, no matter what we had planned. Despite these red flags, I loved James. I convinced myself that once we got married, things would change. After all, we would start our own family. I really assumed that once we tied the knot, James would naturally prioritize our relationship. I couldn't have been more wrong. The wedding itself was a beautiful event, but utterly exhausting. His family, of course, had a hand in everything. It felt like it wasn't James and I getting married, but his entire family. From the guest list to the decorations, nothing was done without their input. I had imagined my wedding as a celebration of our love. But instead, it felt like a show orchestrated by his family. I should have called off the wedding right then and there, but I was too in love and naive to see the truth. Even though I was frustrated, I kept my feelings to myself, determined not to let anything ruin our special day. I told myself that things would get better after we got married, that James and I would have our own life separate from the influence of his family. After the wedding, I was excited for our honeymoon. It was supposed to be our time to relax, rest, and enjoy each other without interruptions. We had planned to spend 2 weeks in Bali, a place we both liked. Although I had another option in mind, it was a compromise. I wanted to go to Europe, but James insisted on a place his family already knew and could recommend. I reluctantly accepted, thinking it would still be romantic and beautiful. I had imagined days on the beach doing nothing, exploring temples and romantic dinners. Little did I know that my honeymoon would be completely different from what we had planned. The day after our wedding, we were leaving for the airport in the afternoon. James had been acting a little strange since the night before, but I attributed it to post-wedding exhaustion. While I was finishing packing, he asked me to talk. It was when we sat down in the living room that he dropped the bomb. He told me that his family had decided to turn our honeymoon into a family vacation. His parents, brothers, and even some cousins would join us. But the worst part was that they decided I should not go. According to James, now that I was part of the family, I was expected to stay home and take care of the household chores while they enjoyed the trip. I looked at James, searching for some indication that he understood how absurd and painful this idea was. But that concept was alien to him. He even smiled slightly, saying that this was a great opportunity for me to join his family and show them how dedicated I was to becoming part of their unit. He assured me that we could always plan another trip in the future. But for now, this was what his family wanted and expected. I realized that this was not just about the honeymoon but a pattern of disregard and control that had been present throughout our relationship. If I agreed to this, I would be setting a precedent for a lifetime of being ignored and belittled by both my husband and his family. But instead of reacting with anger and the pain that I felt boiling inside me, I took a deep breath and forced a smile. I told James that I understood, and that if this was what he and his family wanted, I would respect their wishes. He seemed relieved by my response, thanking me for being so understanding and promising to make it up to me. While James busied himself packing for his new family getaway, I excused myself and went into the bedroom. I closed the door behind me and allowed myself a moment to process everything. I knew I had to take control of the situation and make a decision that honored my own needs and self-worth. I thought about where I could go and what I could do to reclaim this time for myself. Then it occurred to me, my parents had a beautiful vacation home in Hawaii. They had initially offered it to us for our honeymoon, but James insisted on Bali, saying it was more exotic and adventurous. Without wasting any time, I booked a last-minute flight to Maui, scheduled for that same night. I quickly packed my bags and decided to leave without saying anything to James or his family. Before leaving, I wrote a short note to James explaining that, since he would enjoy Bali with his family, I had my own chores to take care of. I wished him a good trip and told him we could talk when we both got back. I left the note on the kitchen counter, grabbed my luggage, and headed to the airport without looking back. For the next 2 weeks, I tried my best to forget the fact that I had just gotten married and that my husband wasn't with me. I did everything I had planned to do on my honeymoon, but on my own. I also used this time to reflect deeply. I thought about my relationship with James, how it started, and how we ended up in this situation. I realized that I had been so anxious to fit into his world and please his family that I lost sight of my own needs and desires. I had ignored warning signs and compromised my boundaries, all in the name of love and acceptance. I deserved a partner who respected and valued my feelings and was willing to prioritize our relationship. I knew that if James couldn't understand and respect that, I would be better off without him. When my time in Hawaii came to an end, I felt better. I packed my bags and prepared to return home. Upon landing and turning on my phone, I found hundreds of messages and missed calls from James and his family. They were not concerned about my well-being. Instead, they were furious that I had not fulfilled the job they had assigned me. James left several voice messages, each in a tone more frustrated than the last. Members of his family had also reached out. Some expressed confusion at my absence, while others directly accused me of being selfish and immature. James' mother sent a particularly hurtful message, calling me ungrateful and accusing me of disrespecting their family traditions. She spoke about how I had missed a crucial opportunity to prove my worth as a daughter-in-law and how disappointed everyone was with me. My sister-in-law said something similar, stating that I was a disappointment to their family. She even made several comments about my family, accusing them of being rude people with bad manners and habits. Reading those messages made me angrier than I had ever been. I told my parents to stay out of contact with James and his family for the moment. I haven't told them the whole situation yet, because I don't want to worry them. For now, I am staying with a friend while I figure out the next steps. James continues to insist that I apologize and come home. He says we can work things out if I just learn to prioritize family. But instead, I'm already talking to a lawyer to see about getting my marriage annulled. Now that I've had my vacation, I can take a more relaxed approach to my soon-to-be ex-husband and his family. If they want a slave, I'm not going to be one for them. Update 1. It's been a few days since I posted, and I love not feeling alone in all of this. Many have supported my decision to pursue an annulment or a divorce, something I will talk about later. After my initial post, James called me again, this time sounding more desperate. He said his family was pressuring him to resolve the situation and that they were willing to forgive me. Yes, he would forgive me if I forgave him. The sheer audacity of that statement almost made me drop the phone. I've been staying with a friend who has been a real rock through all of this. She has been reminding me daily that I deserve to be treated with respect and that I don't have to prove my worth to anyone, let alone a family that sees me as a servant. We have spent hours talking about everything, and she has been a constant source of support, helping me see things more clearly. After my conversation with James, I decided to talk to my parents. They were shocked when they heard what happened. My mom, who was so excited about the wedding, was devastated. My dad, on the other hand, was furious. They offered me their full support, even suggesting I move back home for a while to clear my head. The idea is tempting, especially considering the avalanche of messages I've been receiving from James and his family. James has been bombarding me with messages and voicemails, each one more irritating than the last. At first, he tried to play the blame card, reminding me of the vows we made and asking if I really wanted to throw it all away over a misunderstanding. Yes, to him, it's a misunderstanding. When that didn't work, he changed tactics. In a somewhat calm tone, he told me that if I would just come back, his family would surely forgive me and leave everything behind. It's like he's completely lost sight of what this whole situation is about. I wanted to yell at him that I don't need his forgiveness or that of his family. In fact, it should be the other way around. I am especially angry with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law because they've taken their harassment to a whole new level. They've been terrorizing my parents, demanding to know where I am. They created such a scandal at my parents' house the other day that the neighbors intervened. My poor mom was beside herself, trying to keep her composure while dealing with their vile accusations. They had the nerve to insinuate that my parents were complicit in ruining their family's reputation. The whole neighborhood was abuzz with gossip. At the end of the day, the thought of spending the rest of my life being treated like this makes me sick. After that incident, I knew I couldn't keep quiet any longer. I called James and told him straight up that if he thought for a second I was going to apologize to any of his family members after what they did to me and my family, he was completely delusional. It is they who should be begging me for forgiveness. I was shaking as I spoke, and I could tell he was taken aback by my tone. He began to say something, probably some weak attempt to justify his behavior, but I interrupted him. I told him that this marriage was over and that I congratulated him, as he had perhaps broken a record. Maybe not a world record, but at least one in our city, ruining a marriage so quickly. I hung up before he could answer, my hands shaking from a mix of anger and adrenaline. I couldn't keep listening to his ridiculous excuses. Every time he tries to explain things, it just makes me realize how little he understands, or maybe how little he cares about my perspective. Which brings us to what I talked to my lawyer about, the possibility of annulment. Unfortunately, that option is off the table. There are only a few situations that qualify for annulment, and unfortunately, mine does not apply to any of them. So my only option now is divorce. In my state, you have to wait 60 days to file for divorce, so I won't have to wait too long. It's already been more than 3 weeks since I got married. Update 2. I decided to move in with my parents for a while. I had 2 reasons. The first was that I felt like I had already been at my friend's house long enough. Although she insisted that I stay longer, I didn't want to bother her more than I should. The second reason was that I didn't want my parents to be alone the next time James' family decided to bother them. I hope there won't be a next time, but by now, I've learned that you can't predict what they might do. Coming home felt strangely comforting, as if I was regaining a part of myself that I had lost in the chaos of the last few weeks. My parents were relieved to have me there, and I could see how worried they had been. I began to establish a routine, helping around the house and spending time with my parents, which gave me the space I needed to clear my mind. Then something unexpected happened. A stranger contacted me through a mutual friend. It turned out to be Pam, James' ex-girlfriend. At first, I was surprised she wanted to contact me, but when she explained that she had heard about the incident and wanted to offer her support, I got curious. We exchanged some messages and eventually decided to meet for coffee. Meeting Pam was like looking in a mirror. She had a very similar story to mine, and as we talked, I realized how eerily similar our experiences were. Pam told me that when she and James started dating, she also thought he was a family man, deeply attached to his family. At first, she admired their close relationship just as I did. But then things started to change. Whenever they made plans to go out, somehow a family member ended up accompanying them. It was never just the two of them, and they had no privacy. If they had a dinner date, a cousin would join them. If they went to the movies, an aunt also wanted to see that film. Pam shared a particularly strange incident where they had planned a weekend getaway, something she had looked forward to for weeks. But suddenly, James' mother claimed she wasn't feeling well. Worried, they took her to the doctor, but she had absolutely nothing wrong with her. It was as if she had faked it just to prevent them from going away together. It was then that Pam began to realize it wasn't just a united family, but a family with an extremely toxic relationship. Another detail Pam mentioned was how, during family dinners, she was always expected to help, clean the table, and wash the dishes afterward. This struck me as odd because, in my experience, when someone is invited, they are treated as a guest, not as free labor. But in James' family, this was the norm. They didn't see Pam as a guest, but as someone who had to serve them. She ended up doing almost everything herself. She told me how humiliating it was, especially since James never intervened to help or defend her. He just accepted it, as if it was completely normal. Pam revealed that all of this became too much for her. She tried to talk to James about it, hoping he would understand and set some boundaries with his family. But James wasn't willing to listen to her. Every time she tried to express her feelings, he would turn it against her, accusing her of not trying hard enough or not understanding how important family was to him. Pam tried to make it work for a while, but eventually realized that nothing was going to change. James was too entangled in the dynamics of his family to prioritize his relationship with her. As much as she described resonated with what I had been experiencing, it was as if James had a pattern of attracting women into his life only to turn them into family servants. I knew without a doubt that I wanted to go through with a divorce, but Pam's story just further validated my decision. I just have to wait long enough to be able to file the divorce papers. My lawyer is already prepared, even before I spoke to Pam, and will inform James of my decision to file for divorce. The only thing I hope for now is that the divorce is easier than everything that led me here. Update 3. I've already signed the divorce papers, although I'm still waiting for James' response. In the meantime, I'm trying to focus on getting my life back to normal. I'm concentrating on things I can control, like my job, instead of dwelling on things that are beyond my capabilities. I thought I could start moving forward, but things didn't go as expected. The other day was my friend's birthday, the same one who took me in when everything started to fall apart. At first, everything was going well. The people were much more understanding than I expected, and to my relief, no one seemed too interested in my personal drama. The atmosphere was light, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to relax and enjoy the company of friends. It felt good to be out, to feel like a normal person again, even if it was just for a little while. But then, just as I was starting to feel like things might be okay, I saw James storm in. As soon as James saw me, he came straight toward me, his face twisted in anger. He wasted no time and started yelling, demanding to know how I could do this to him. I tried to maintain my composure and put on my best face. I calmly asked him what he meant. Couldn't I even attend my friend's birthday? But my response only seemed to provoke him further. He began to make a scene, lecturing me in front of everyone about how I was destroying our sacred bond. In any other situation, I probably would have laughed off that comment, considering how little he had done to defend our marriage when it really mattered. What was there to salvage about a husband who remained silent while his wife was disrespected and belittled by his family? I told him I didn't want to have any kind of conversation with him, especially not here, at my friend's house, during her birthday. I tried to get away, hoping to de-escalate the situation, but James didn't allow it. He continued raising his voice, saying increasingly erratic things. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, one of the guys at the party stepped in. He told James to go away and leave me alone. That's when James completely lost control. He didn't take the comment kindly and suddenly started yelling that I was cheating on him. He accused me of rushing into a divorce because I was having an affair. The accusation was so absurd that, for a moment, I didn't even know how to respond. But James wasn't done. He lunged at the guy who had been defending me, screaming in his face and demanding to know if we were having an affair. It was like watching a switch flip in James' head. He had gone from angry and hurt to completely irrational. James knew he barely knew this guy. He was just a friend of a friend, someone he had hardly spoken to before that night. But that didn't seem to matter to James. He was out of control, yelling at anyone and anything that stood in his way. Eventually, some friends stepped in to break them up and got James out of the place. Before he left, he yelled at me, saying that I was ruining his life and that I would regret what I was doing. In the days that followed, I tried to process everything. I spoke to my parents and my lawyer, and they both agreed that this latest incident only reinforced that I was making the right decision in ending the marriage. It was clear that James was not only refusing to accept the divorce, but also losing control in a way that made me fear for my safety. I knew what I had to do next. I decided to confront James' mother directly. I was tired of playing nice and justifying her behavior. I called her, and I wasted no time in getting to the point. I reminded her of all the times I had excused her and James' erratic behavior, all the times I had tried to keep the peace for the sake of the marriage. But I made it clear that my patience had worn thin. I told her that if James or any member of his family continued to harass me, my next step would be to file a restraining order. I could practically hear her grinding her teeth on the other end of the phone. I reminded her how much they bragged about James' prestigious job and pointed out that he would lose it in a heartbeat if it became known that his wife had to file a restraining order against him. That immediately silenced her. I wasn't finished. I told her it was in everyone's best interest for James to sign the divorce papers and put this behind us. Unlike them, I had plenty of evidence to take to court, and if they pushed me further, I wouldn't hesitate to use it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her tone had changed completely. She tried to suggest that we could all sit down and sort things out, but I cut her off. There was nothing to sort out. This marriage was over, and the sooner they accepted it, the better it would be for everyone. Very soon after that call, James signed the divorce papers. I guess talking to his mother helped with the whole thing. My lawyer is now handling all the paperwork, and I've started the process of officially closing this chapter of my life. For the first time in what seems like forever, things have calmed down. Update 4. As several people wanted to know if I'm officially divorced from James and his family, I've decided to make this update. Even though, legally, I'm not divorcing his family, considering how inseparably united they are, it feels as though the divorce is with all of them. And yes, all the papers are ready, signed, notarized, and everything else that is done with legal documents. Although, to be honest, I don't have the slightest idea about the exact details of the divorce process. But my lawyer has confirmed that I'm already free and has shown me proof of it. So, that's enough for me. The good thing is that, at least during these months, I haven't had to deal with James or his family, who, at this point, can be seen as a cult. And like every cult, they need new followers. So, James has tried to recruit someone new to be a servant for his family. I don't mind James moving on with his life, but I've had the opportunity to chat with this new girl. Shortly after she started dating James, she posted something on social media about certain things that had been happening. I didn't see the post, but according to her, she was complaining that James' family wanted her to go to her mother-in-law's house at 4 in the morning to prepare food and other things for James' grandfather's birthday, all by herself. And in the words of the mother-in-law, she had to make little noise because the mother-in-law likes to sleep in late on Sundays. That post caught Pam's attention, and Pam reached out to her. After hearing the story, Pam told her about what had happened to her and suggested she contact me. When we talked, I shared my experience with her, showed her Pam's posts, and strongly advised her to escape as quickly as possible from the Menon family. She left James after that, and now I imagine he's searching the black market for another slave to fulfill his family's desires. This new girlfriend told me that my posts should be part of the introductory material for anyone entering James' family so they would know what they're up against. Or, better yet, they could escape. I told her she was welcome to share my posts with whoever needed them. I've tried to add a little humor to this update because I feel much better after escaping that cult. But much of what I've shared is true, such as advising James' new girlfriend to run from his family. A friend once told me, and it came to mind while this girl shared her story, that while I can't help every woman James tries to capture, I'll do what I can. Some women may choose to stay, and others I may never know about because I don't follow James' life. But if any of them needs my help to escape, I'll gladly help draw up an escape plan. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories.